Good afternoon. Thanks for joining me, Josh. Of Severe Weather. I'm a meteorologist in the Raleigh area. We have a new invest in the Western Caribbean near Jamaica that is expected to become our next system, Sara, as the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season continues to go on and on and on here, it seems. But those of you in the Western Caribbean and those of you in Florida need to keep a very close watch on this. I'm going to talk about my initial forecast track now that we have some models running on this feature and also where the models show some differences. Now, at this time, hurricane potential is definitely there. I'm calling for Category 4. That's my first call. And we expect this to continue into the southeastern Gulf and maybe a threat to Florida as well towards the middle of next week. This can change. It typically does some. But this is the first call at this point. So our invest right now is just south and east of Jamaica. The system is heading westward. It will probably become a tropical storm before the end of the week, and eventually will make it to near Honduras and Nicaragua as a hurricane. After that, we're expecting this to loop back to the right for a little bit, and it may not make a northwestward turn until later this weekend. At that point, it'll be in the warmest portion of the Caribbean Sea and likely have a chance to develop perhaps rapidly as it continues north and west. Those of you in the Cayman Islands, in Belize, and especially in the Yucatan and western Cuba should be starting to make some preparations at this point in advance of this system, as it could be moving in your direction by Sunday night or early on Monday. After that, we're expecting the system to turn to the north and east. Where that bend happened is still very uncertain. We have some possibilities here north of the Yucatan that might take it all the way up towards the Panhandle or Big Bend. We have others that could recurve the system farther to the south and east and narrowly miss making landfall in Florida. But right now, the average of the forecast models does make it towards the west coast of Florida here, very close to where we saw storms like Milton come in. And again, this can change quite a bit, but this is the official forecast. So as of the latest update, we now have a medium chance of this becoming our next storm between now and Thursday afternoon, and a high chance, 90%, over the next week. We do have a broad area of low pressure that is now formed, and things are going to be very conducive for this system to strengthen. It's over warm water, wind shear is going to be low, and moisture is pretty high across this portion of the Atlantic basin. More so than typical, but if storms were to form this time of the year, this would be the hot spot for them to develop. Here is a look at, whoops, we'll come back to that. Here's a look at the satellite for the Gulf of Mexico. Rafael is gone, but you can see we still have a bit of a broad circulation both here and a mid-level circulation here. And then we have another low pressure area here that has no convection with it whatsoever. Nothing to really worry about here. We do have some rain showers moving up into the central Gulf states at this point, but really nothing heavy. So this is just another testament that this portion of the Gulf from here on over is very unfavorable for anything to stay organized, but doesn't mean we can't get rain or moisture in here. It's just going to be tough for a strong storm. This area in here, though, is a lot more favored for a system as water temperatures remain warmer. They're in the low to mid 80s and wind shear is pretty low. Here's a look at our flare-up of storms really starting to get going here just to the south and east of Kingston, Jamaica. There may be a bit of a low pressure center right about here. And generally speaking, it's moving west or even just south of west in the general direction of Honduras and Nicaragua. We are going to see heavy rain continuing across portions of Haiti, which are dealing with political unrest right now, unfortunately, to go with this. We're going to see heavy rain over portions of lower Central America, and we are eventually going to see this moisture moving into southeastern Cuba as well. We also have bands of rain spreading northward into parts of Hispaniola, and we've had heavy rain over portions of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. This looks to be still unsettled across this area, but I think the worst has passed for that region. Here's a look at the official forecast from the European. And you can see here, aside from what's left of Rafael, a 90 to 110% chance of a tropical cyclone strike. I don't know how they get 110. I think they meant to say 100, but you all get the point here. Likely that we have a tropical cyclone in this area over the next week. Beyond that, things obviously get more uncertain. But as we head into the week before Thanksgiving, we still have a higher chance than average over the northwestern Caribbean, and certainly a chance as well over the southern and eastern portion of the Gulf of Mexico. Slim chances even all the way up into the Carolinas, but I'm not too worried about that. After that, we may still have a flare-up to deal with here after this system. Tony would be the following name, but it looks like it would be confined to the southern part of Central America and the Southwest Caribbean. And then finally, the door starts to close as we get into December, as you would expect for this time of the year. Here's the one-day chance for a tropical storm to form, and we see that chance starting here Wednesday night and Thursday to the east of Honduras. That chance grows on Friday. This is Saturday. You can see it's actually moving back to the right here. I'll talk about why. Sunday, we see it between Honduras and Jamaica. Monday, heading back to the west or northwest. And then next Tuesday, approaching the Yucatan and or western Cuba. And then moving into the southern Gulf of Mexico Tuesday night and Wednesday. And then turning eastward or northeastward here Wednesday night into Thursday, including South Florida here. That's the tropical storm potential here. If we look at the full chance here, you can see here, highly likely we have a tropical system, at least at tropical storm strength, near the north coast of Honduras. And a very good chance this is going into the warmest part of the Gulf as well, northwest of Cuba, southwest of Florida. After that, this would probably get picked up pretty quickly and pulled to the north and east. Here's the full chance for a hurricane. And you can see here, the best chance for this to be a hurricane, according to the European model, is very close to western Cuba, but also over southwest Florida and the Florida Keys. That chance is about 30%. That's as high as you're going to see this time of the year, and that's a pretty confident chance as well. So really hard to ignore these chances at this point. When I show you models, you're going to see why I'm already jumping the gun on this system here. Now, this is Invest 99L. We will see tropical models run on this this afternoon, and especially tonight. I'll update you if I see something of note, but I don't think we're going to see big changes. But here we go. You can see there is a pretty good flare up to the south and east of Jamaica. We'll have heavy rain moving on to the island of Jamaica here this evening. This is generally moving to the west or even west-southwest. Unlikely to be a tropical storm hitting Jamaica, but we will have the heavy rain certainly. Here's a look at the visible image for you all to be able to see as well. And you can see here, it's a very broad circulation, but it is a circulation. So this could become a depression in the next day. There certainly is a possibility of that. We won't know until aircraft get in there or unless the Hurricane Center decides to pull the trigger and call this a tropical depression. And that's a possibility here. If you look at the water vapor image, though, just to give you an idea, the reason why it's not forming as quickly as some storms has is there's a lot of dry air off to the north and west of this. In fact, a pretty big ridge of high pressure centered across this area. So initially, this system is going to take a little bit more time to get going, but it should. You can see there's a good feed of moisture off to the south and west. There's not a lot of wind shear at this point. So it is going to be in a thriving environment where it can grow pretty significantly. Looking at the models ahead, these are the ensembles. Obviously, there's a lot of possibilities still until the system forms. But you can see here, generally speaking, a westward movement and then sort of a counterclockwise loop here. It looks like it's going to hit Central America, but a lot of our ensemble guidance pulls it back out, and then eventually a northwest turn. Now, where that turn happens is still to be determined, but there's a good amount of guidance that pulls this up into the most favorable spot for this storm. We really don't see too many ideas of it going off in this direction anymore. I know some of the models showed that yesterday, but more than likely, it's either going to hit the Yucatan or it's going to hit Western Cuba, or it's going to find a way to slide between the two and still impact those areas. Everything that does come up this way is going to make a right turn. There's pretty much no obvious solution that takes it here and kills it at this point. It's going to eventually get pulled northwestward. So obviously, if you're in Florida, this is something you need to be watching pretty closely. Ensemble or the intensity forecast. It's very clear with our global models here, this system is going to strengthen, and it could be a hurricane by the end of the week or over the weekend. And right now, the ships is the highest, Category 4. We'll wait and see what the tropical models are showing, but you know, there's still a possibility this could try to get up to 5 at some point, but I'm not going to predict that at this point. Probably a 3 or a 4 would be where this system ends up landing if the wind shear stays pretty low. Here's the ship's model for you all to see. The reason why it's going to strengthen, well, look at this. Wind shear between now and the end of the weekend remains below 10 knots. That is extremely low. Once a center forms and a core forms, as long as it avoids land, this storm is going to strengthen pretty significantly. Water temperatures are very warm, a few degrees above average. We're close to 30 Celsius, which is 86 Fahrenheit. Generally speaking, the water temperature is about 85 along the path of this system. Until it gets past Jamaica, then it drops to 84, maybe 83, which is still warm enough to support a hurricane. It's not as ideal as maybe earlier in the season. And then relative humidity is very high here, 75% here. which is significant. Remember, Rafael was in the 50s and it still got to a hurricane. We're going to be above that level here until early next week. Then it does drop a little bit. Ocean heat content is substantial enough for this system to be strong. So the ship's model says, and I know the intensification probabilities aren't showing up yet, but it says this will be a depression by tomorrow, a tropical storm by Friday morning, a hurricane near the coastline by Friday night, Saturday morning. Then it loops back out and becomes a Category 4 over the weekend, and most of the guidance pulls it in this direction. The ship's is a little bit farther right than some of the other models. So I'm going to show you those models. Here's the GFS operational, and I often, when I look at the GFS in the longer range, I often put up a caution sign and say, look, this is going to change a lot, or this is an outlier. But at this point, the GFS is leading the charge for other models which are showing a similar solution to now where I have a little bit more confidence in what's going to happen here in the next week. Remember, if this hits Florida, it's only 8 days away. That's not a long time. It's beyond the window of where we're very confident, especially because it hasn't formed yet, but it is starting to get within that range where we have an idea of what's going to happen. So you can see with the GFS here on Thursday, we have a strengthening storm. And what happens here is that we've got a trough right in here that's going to take the system and keep it from moving westward. In fact, it's going to pick it up and pull it back in this direction. Here's the problem with that trough. It's not very strong. As we move this on further, after that trough leaves, we have a big area of high pressure that builds in here. And as a result, this system can no longer leave. This high is already building in this direction, and that sets up a block across the Bahamas and across eastern Cuba. So the system's got nowhere to go but either to the right and then back to the left. It's going to be stuck in traffic here for a while, but look how strong it is. By Saturday afternoon and evening, we have a 950 millibar hurricane, which is a Category 3, and it continues to strengthen into the 930s, which is a higher end Category 4 on Sunday. And there's a possibility still this could be stronger. I've seen some models show that, but for now, we'll go Category 4. Right now, it keeps it at a safe distance from Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, a little bit closer to Honduras than we would like to see. But it keeps it away from any major land until we get to maybe Monday night. And then at that point, it's got the option to either go into the Yucatan or to go across western Cuba or to do this, which would be worst case for Florida, and that's go right through the chute here, right through the Yucatan Channel on Monday night into Tuesday morning. We are expecting this to turn northeast, and the reason why is the area of high pressure is moving away to the right. We've got another trough dropping down here. We've got a front dropping down here, a very strong front, by the way, that's going to pick the system up and pull it northeast. But the question mark is, how severe is that turn? Is it this quick? Is it down in here? Is it more up in here? Or does it even come around this way? I mean, all those are still possible at this point. But the GFS has been the most consistent here with this hitting southwestern Florida or even close to Tampa Bay. And I'm not joking about Sara, but it is half of Sarasota. I really hope Sarasota doesn't get hit, but somebody here probably will. And right now, it's still too soon to say how strong this will be and where exactly it hits. But our time frame is probably between Tuesday evening and Thursday morning, so the middle of next week, just 8 days before Thanksgiving. After that, it's anybody's guess, but you can see our big front is moving in behind it. So if we look at different model runs of the GFS, you can see it's been pretty well behaved and fairly consistent here, because this was the model run before, and it was just a tiny bit farther north and west, maybe closer to Bradenton as a Category 2 or Category 3 hurricane. The run before that was a little bit farther off to the south and west with landfall near Bonita Springs and Naples. But again, there's really not a lot of change between these runs. We're talking very minor adjustments, all showing a powerful storm, all showing landfall in western Florida. That is obviously concerning. The European was also on board. Now, the run from earlier today, not quite as strong, but strong enough to be of concern. Remember, the European didn't even know that Milton was a Category 5. It had it as a Category 1. Helene, it was too weak on. It's showing a Category 3, strengthening to Category 4. So it is right in the same ballpark and in the same league as the GFS here. And look at that, 935. That's a strong Category 4. It is a little bit slower. Remember, we had landfall showing up on Wednesday in Florida. The European from earlier, a little slower, and as a result, it would take more of a right turn. This would avoid most of Florida, but would crush Cuba. However, the run coming in now, which I don't have yet on Tropical Tidbits, but here's pivotal weather, is beginning to correct as well. And you can see Not very strong yet. It's organizing Tuesday or Thursday into Friday, but take a look at this, strengthening near the northern coast of Honduras on Friday night, and likely a hurricane past that point here. We've got to get to about Sunday night or Monday morning before that happens. Now, the European is hugging the coast of Honduras, which keeps us from getting too strong. It takes it over Belize and the Yucatan, so it's a lot farther west than the earlier run, but it too shows that turn to the northeast and pulling it right across Monroe County and maybe southern Collier County Wednesday evening. So it's taking a longer route closer to land masses, so it's not as strong, but it is showing a hurricane hitting southwest Florida later on Wednesday, just within less than 100 miles of the GFS. Canadian model, not the best model here when we get to genesis of storms, but I just want to show you where it's tracking at least. Still a tropical storm here over the weekend, and then it too, like the European, has this hitting near Tulum and Chetumal, and then coming up through the Yucatan, so it's weaker, but then it too pulls it to the northeast, and this one brings it right to St. Petersburg Wednesday afternoon and evening. Not as strong. This would be a tropical storm, which would be a lot better than a hurricane, but still not a good place to hit. Tampa Bay obviously has had their share of storms this season. Last thing we want to see is another one. So those are the main global models. The Icon model is the German model, and it's probably not strong enough, but it is showing the same thing here. Strengthening storm Friday and Saturday near Honduras, hugging the coastline, hitting Belize here Sunday night, crossing the Yucatan, and then because it spends more time over that land, it does not re-strengthen as quickly, and in fact has a weaker system coming up towards the Florida Panhandle on Wednesday morning. The Navy GEM model. This one is more in line with the GFS and European here. You can see tropical storm becoming a hurricane by Friday or Saturday morning, and then making the right push away as it gets shoved off by the trough. Eventually, the new ridge builds in, so it does turn back. And here you can see this is a Category 3 hurricane just west of the Caymans Monday morning, hitting western Cuba Monday night as a strong Category 3. And that would be very unfortunate because that's very close to where Rafael would have hit last week, almost the same intensity. And then this takes it up through the Florida Keys and very close to Homestead, Florida, and Key Largo Tuesday night. So point I want to make here is we're going to see a lot of different solutions, but all of them are aimed at Florida, and most show a hurricane unless it ends up interacting more with Central America. Then we have a tropical storm, which would be our best case. But regardless, if you're in Florida, now's the time to just go over your supply list, go over some possible plans next week, look at travel plans. Don't cancel things yet. We've got 7-8 days, but do keep a closer eye on things. Here's a European AI, and again, it's going over the Yucatan and then making a turn towards the Big Bend Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night as a tropical storm. And again, that's the AI, so it's not going to be quite as fine-tuned as some of the other models. Here's a look at wind potential, and this might be getting a little too carried away too soon, but I just want to show you where the track is. And you can see here, the Yucatan and Cuba would get hit Monday night. The Keys might get hit Tuesday night, and then Florida would get hit during the day on Wednesday. And yep, we're seeing some strong winds here, 107 miles per hour in Naples, 72 in Bradenton, 85 in Northport, 92 in Fort Myers. And look at the East Coast too. If this is right on the GFS, we have 90 in Miami, 80 in Miami, 90 in Fort Lauderdale, 96 in West Palm, 90 in places like Juno Beach. I really hope that's wrong. Here's the European model, a little bit different, but you get the idea here. The Florida Keys instead of Southwest Florida and instead of the East Coast get the strongest wind, but 98 miles per hour in Key West, 89 in Marathon, 59 here in Key Largo, 50 in Miami. So regardless, if this does what the models say it will, we're going to have some damage problems here in Florida towards the middle of next week. Here's a Canadian model. Real quick, you can see it's not as strong. That's not a shock to me, but it does have tropical storm conditions hitting Southwest Florida. 40 miles an hour around Tampa, close to 50 in Northport, maybe 55, 60 around Venice, and less to the south and east. But and oh, by the way, after this system leaves, there's a strong front that's going to drive some strong winds down, and it's going to feel a lot colder here in Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma towards the middle of next week, kind of our first real true cold shot. All right, so let's take a look at the Pacific, because Florida's not the only place getting hammered storm after storm. The Philippines have had 2 already. Number 3 is on the way, and number 4 comes right behind it here, hitting Guam right now. And this map is a big mess, but Yinzing hit the Philippines a few days ago. That is a remnant low at this point. Here's our next one, Taraji. That is weakening, but it hit the northern Philippines as well, and that will fall apart. We have two more to watch here. This is Usagi, which will be a typhoon here by tonight, and that is going to clip the northeastern coast of as a stronger typhoon, 110 to 120 mile per hour wind, northeastern coast here of Cagayan, heading up close to Taiwan here, and that would be a big problem. The same places have been getting hit over and over again, and if that weren't enough, we have a new tropical storm, Manny, moving through Guam, 50 mile per hour wind, and that one's a little more uncertain, but the track right now brings it close to the Philippines as a stronger typhoon, 120 mile per hour. So the Philippines will have taken on 3 strong typhoons and 1 lower end typhoon, all within a 10-day span, which is just completely unrealistic in my opinion. But here you can see Guam right here. This is Manny, 50 mile per hour storm. Here's Guam. Whoops, it jumped away from me. And that is something we've got to watch pretty closely here. Here's the radar, the heaviest rain just south and west of the island. A lot of rain there. And over time, you just see the parade of storms here. It looks like a Thanksgiving Day parade here, unfortunately. Here's the one hitting Thursday afternoon local time. Here's the next one potentially hitting over the weekend. GFS does provide some mercy on the last one by recurving it and then keeping it much weaker, but the European is not in that same boat. Unfortunately, the European's got a strong storm hitting here Thursday afternoon, and then the one that follows it even stronger. This would be a Category 4, 130, 140 mile per hour typhoon hitting over the end of the weekend. Just a really nasty setup here. After that, things do quiet down, fortunately. So that is it on the tropics. We're going to have tropical models tomorrow. My forecast can probably change. I would not be shocked if it did. But we're seeing some pretty good agreement here, unfortunately, on Sara. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Helene. It's a different track, but that certainty level's a lot higher than usual. And for the middle of November, just remarkable. But if there were storms this time of the year, they're either going to be going this way or they're going to come up in this direction. That is not unusual. It just doesn't happen very often. So here's a look at the United States. Remnant moisture hitting the central Gulf Coast region here. A little bit of shower activity, nothing heavy. Cooler weather across the Northeast today. Our next big front barreling into the west, and we have subtropical moisture coming out of the Pacific hitting West Texas here. And here you can see the rain, not super heavy, but mostly over southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, and the Florida parishes. We don't have any watches or warnings in the southeast to really worry about. We do have river warnings, flood warnings from the recent rains we've had. We do have a red flag warning again across southern New England and downstate New York and Long Island and even North Jersey. We have winter weather advisories up for the mountains of the Southwest and California. And we do have wind advisories out for the Northwest as well. And things are going to change pretty quickly here next week. We do have moisture spreading tomorrow into the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. A chilly rain across the mid-Atlantic and Great Lakes for Thursday and Thursday night. That is what's going to turn future Sara to the right. That storm's going to pull it and yank it back to the right just for a couple of days, but it's quickly going to leave the area and we're going to warm right back up early next week. New high pressure area. That is what's going to entice Sara up into the Gulf. Our next storm here is going to be pretty intense here. We may see a little bit of severe weather on Monday across parts of Oklahoma and maybe North Texas. Heavy rain across Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, even northwestern Missouri, and then snow on the northern edge here as some cooler air wraps in. But take a look at this next one that comes in here. Big time trough here. Take a look at this cold air just drilled down from central Canada on Wednesday and Thursday. So we could very much have a hurricane and a winter storm in progress at the same time in different parts of the country. And then that cool air is going to come down to the southeast Friday and Saturday of next week. Thanksgiving week looks like it'll still be chilly in the east. Lake effect snows possible, even mountain snows. The west will be quieter and milder. And overall, this can change because it's 2 weeks away. But overall, the cold is going to be the end of next week and next weekend. And then temperatures slowly subside or slowly moderate after that. So obviously I'll have more to come in the coming days. But as always, I appreciate everybody's time today. Feel free to have any questions for me about your location. Just know, though, until we get an actual storm and an actual track, things can adjust. Things can change. And I will keep you posted on a daily basis here with afternoon videos. So I appreciate your time today. I hope everybody is safe out there and has a great Tuesday evening. And I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I give God the glory and the honor of doing this every single day. This is my gift to you. Paul tells the church of Ephesus, this is from the New Testament, Ephesians 2:8 through 10, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. It is by grace that we have been saved and can live eternally in heaven if we choose to believe in Jesus Christ. That is a relationship that I developed about 12 years ago, understanding that I was a creation and I was a gift. I didn't realize it until I realized it, if that makes sense, a come to Jesus moment. But the good works, that is important because we are here to use our talents and abilities to bless other folks. So whatever you're doing in your life right now, whatever spot you're in, just know that you can be a blessing to other people. I pray that I'm a blessing to folks here. I've seen some comments for people thanking me, and it's not to be high on myself. I'm actually a pretty humble person, but I'm using the gifts God has given me. I really pray that He's already given you the gift, but He is allowing you to flourish in Him. And if you do not truly believe that, then you're going to put your worth in what others believe, how valuable you are, how much money you make, what your employers think of you. And I've done that, and that's a very difficult place to live. When you understand that your worth is God's worth, that you are worth here, you are created for greatness. And I'm not saying you're not going to struggle in that greatness. Every champion goes through difficult times. But once you understand that, then you are truly where God wants you to be, and that is to be a blessing to other folks. And that is the good news I wanted to share with you all today. I'll catch you all again tomorrow. Have a wonderful night. See ya.